Hello, I'm David Jeff Shay of Shays Holistics, and I thought I would do a short follow-on video to my written article, What is a Spiritual Physicist? Now, at the urging of my guides, they have been wanting me to share with how information comes through for me for quite some time. It can help both people who read my articles and watch videos to understand why the information comes through the way it does, and sometimes in quite some detail, although my goal is to always keep it at a higher level so it's more useful. Now, I've avoided doing this video, and I even avoided doing the article for so long, but at the urging of my guides, it's finally coming around to doing that. But one of the reasons why I've avoided this is I found out about 15 years ago that I'm actually quite shy, and that may come as a shock to those who know me, but it's actually true. Left to my own devices, I tend to be just enjoying my spiritual quest on my own and following that. And I had a friend of mine who some years ago pointed it out to me, about 15 years ago, just a trusted friend whose advice and whose insights are very, very powerful, said that she had noticed that I was always willing to help other people, but when it came time to being out there and taking credit for it, I'd much rather just say, well, you can take credit for it and leave me out of the picture. So that's why it took me so long for me to get out there, as my guides told me to do. They said, get out there, you need to get out there. And finally, as you know, we finally put the website online here in full about a couple of years ago. So let's talk a little bit about how information comes through, because I think it's real helpful for you to know how the information comes through. So when you read something, it's like, why is he talking about this? It'll make sense. Now, I'm not sure which cognitive model I'm talking about anymore, but I'm a style 4 learner. And what that means, that's my primary learning style. And there's in this model, there's 4 learning styles, but my primary one is style 4, which is I'm an abstract conceptualizer. I can take 2 or 3 data points, put them together, and draw the whole picture. I can see the whole thing. I understand things in whole pictures, and then I understand all the subparts of that, all the different pieces and parts and how they link together. So it's a wonderful thing in that I can understand both the macro view, and I can understand how each individual part works independently to the whole picture, as well as the whole picture itself, and with all the parts connected. The problem with that comes in and when someone asks some specific question. I have this whole picture here, and we're asking about a little thread of it. Fortunately for me, my secondary learning style, and we all have one, is a style 1, which is, I think, we're called a concrete learner. I learned step 1, then step 2, and so on and so forth. And what that allows me to do is to have, with my style 4, I can see the big picture, and then my style 1, if someone asks me a question, I can take a little slice out of that and say, there's the piece they're talking about. The challenge for me is to take that slice, because I can understand how this particular issue, let's say someone has self-sabotaging issues, I can see how this element in their life affects it, and this over here affects it, and their relationship to their mother affects it, and their relationship to maybe their father or their siblings and friends, and so on and so forth. All these different elements of their lives are all linked to that, and it can get really, really detailed. So that's important to know when you're reading it. For example, my emotional baggage series, believe it or not, that was written from my conceptual style 4 perspective at a fairly high level. Although if it's something you're not familiar with, it would seem quite detailed. But the information is there in such a way that it can give you, the reader or the video watcher, enough information so that you can connect to the next piece. Or if you have a question, you can always write us. Just send us an email, and we'll be happy to respond as quickly as we can. So with that in mind, each of us has a relationship to not only others, but the information we learn. And I'm going to use 2 like I did in the article. We have the artist, and we have the mathematician or scientist. Now, artists have a different relationship to information. They're free-flowing. They're conceptualizing. They're rendering artistic interpretations of things in both the written form, sculptures, paintings, music, you name it, they're doing that. And because of it, they're just flowing with the information because of that. And it allows things to come through in a way that is really artful, and it can really help our right brain see things. We can see the picture, we can see the artistry in it. Then when we go to apply it, that comes into our left brain. And you could say the scientist or the mathematician. So when a mathematician or a scientist writes about things, they write very specifically, very descriptively. They follow mathematical or scientific axioms, and they don't get particularly creative with those axioms. The rules are the rules. Math renders the way it does. Science renders the way it does, and it's real important to stay with it. Otherwise, it's not science, it's art. So the difference in our life, the real impact things can have, that's where the difference comes in, is the ability to take the conceptual, the big picture, understand how it is for us emotionally, intuitively, and then take that and apply it to some way where we can take the information that we have and apply it to our life. So if we have an issue, we can resolve it. We can take and do concrete steps, again, that's style one, and make it come to pass where we can resolve it. An example of the kind of information I get, because I get the big picture, I get such incredible detail right down, I call it to the subatomic spiritual level. An example of this is not that detailed, but for example, in every layer of our aura, as I talked about in the written article, is a thin layer of, very thin, very almost imperceptible, of energy. It's a neutral energy, and it keeps one layer separated from the other so they don't short circuit. Like it would be like insulators around wires. It keeps each body being able to operate and do the thing each energetic body associated with the many chakras does. At the same time, it acts as a very selective conductor, where it allows certain information between each layer to communicate that's necessary so that all layers of our aura or all of our spiritual bodies can communicate well with one another. So with that in mind, it wasn't about just a few months ago that I realized, and this is the name of the article and the video here, is I'm a spiritual physicist, in that I can take and get incredible detailed information. I can see the big picture. I can see how every element of the big picture spiritually for someone, or some concept, whether that be an issue for someone or some spiritual challenge for someone, or when I look at universes and spiritual realms, it all comes through the same way. Because of that, I get to be both an artist, I can see the right brain, descriptive, rendering, the artistic beholding of something, as well as all very detailed aspects of it, which is really helpful. Because when I talk to someone asks me a question about something, as I start talking about things, let's say from the right brain, the artistic aspect, and it's coming through literal, let's say, for example, let's go to the left brain first. If I talk about the literal, they'll know precisely what I'm talking about. Someone says, oh yeah, I know exactly, that's so-and-so, and that's when this happens at work, and when they do this to me, and that kind of thing. And then when I talk about the metaphorical, or the artistic half of it, they'll say, oh, I know what that means. When I feel this way, when that happens, that's why that happens. And so having both the artistic, or you could say the artistic aspect of it, as well as the scientific or mathematical aspect of information coming through, is helpful when working with people. The challenge for me is to keep things at a high enough level so that people can get the big picture things, and then they need to work through it. Most of us want to work through it ourselves. We need to get the idea, we can catch it. Okay, I get it. That's what he's talking about. That's the situation in my life. Yeah, I recognize it. All right, now I can look and drill down. And so I try to provide both the big picture within my articles, as well as some detail, but not too much. And that, of course, is the challenge for me. And again, most people prefer higher level information, especially when they're first working on some spiritual challenge or just starting in their spiritual life, so that they can start at that level that makes sense to them and work down into the details. Because what happens is sometimes I get so much information in detail that if I go into the detail, by the time the conversation is over with, no one understood what we talked about because there was so much information, it's all kind of jumbled. So my challenge and my commitment to you is to keep things, the main thing, as Stephen Covey would say, and I will keep it at a high enough level, an appropriate level of information to where it's useful to you, but also enough detail to where when you're ready, you can drill down. And of course, if you have questions, you can always write us, or if you feel like you want to have a session with us, we do energetic sessions, sound showers. The whole thing is on our website at shaysholistics.com, and again, that's under spiritual offerings. So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about that article because it is quite lengthy, but that's the gist of it, which is how information comes through. I'm trying to keep it a big picture. The detail does come through for me, enormous amounts, but I try to share it so that it makes sense to whoever I'm talking to at the level they're ready to deal with it, and then as they're ready for more information, we can provide more. So with that, I hope this was helpful. Blessings, light, and love, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.